Have you ever stopped to wonder if the very glass of water and handful of pills you swallow every morning with such faith and hope could be the silent architects of your own decline? As I sit here in my quiet study in the heart of Atlanta, watching the amber sun dip below the horizon of the Georgia pines, I am haunted by that question. My name is Dr. Sanjay Gupta. For 30 years, I have walked the sterile, white corridors of America's most demanding hospitals, and in that time, I have held the hands of over 30,000 souls. I have felt the pulse of the nation beneath my fingertips, from the frantic beat of a young man in trauma to the fragile, paper-thin flutter of a grandmother's heart in her final hours. These 30,000 stories have taught me something that no textbook at Harvard or Johns Hopkins could ever fully capture. Medicine is not just about what we add to the body. It is often about what we have the courage to take away. I see it every single day in my clinic. A patient walks in, someone like your father or your aunt carrying a small plastic bag filled with colorful bottles. They look at me with eyes full of a desperate kind of trust, telling me they take these vitamins because they want to stay strong, because they want to see their grandchildren graduate, because they want to remain independent. It is a beautiful, quintessentially American ritual. But tonight, I must speak to you not just as a physician, but as a witness to a quiet tragedy. For those of you who have crossed the threshold of 60 years, the biology of your existence has shifted. Your liver, your kidneys, and your very cells no longer process the world the same way they did at 25. Yet, the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry continues to whisper the same promises into your ear, ignoring the shifting tides of your internal chemistry. The reality is staggering, and frankly, it keeps me awake at night. According to rigorous research recently published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society, more than 50% of seniors are currently taking supplements that are not only unnecessary, but are actively sabotaging their health. We are talking about millions of people who are paying out of their own pockets to accelerate the very aging process they are trying to flee. I have seen vibrant men and women in their 70s come to me with unexplained bruising, sudden cognitive clouds, and hearts that seem to be tiring for no reason, only to find that the culprit was sitting right there on their nightstand. It is a heartbreaking paradox. In our quest for longevity, we have turned our medicine cabinets into minefields. Some of these synthetic compounds fuel the fires of systemic inflammation, while others act like a slow-acting rust, oxidizing your tissues from the inside out. Tonight, I want to pull back the curtain on this marketing illusion. I want to walk with you through the science of what truly happens when a 60-year-old body encounters a mega dose of a factory-made nutrient. You see, the truth isn't found in the bold letters on a plastic label or the smiling faces in a television commercial. It is found in the microscopic dance of your cells and the hard data of clinical trials. There is a profound difference between feeling 60 and feeling 80. And often, that difference is dictated by the chemical burdens we unknowingly place upon ourselves. I have watched patients reclaim their lives, their clarity, and their strength simply by stopping the wrong things and starting the right ones. It is a journey of less is more, a return to the wisdom of the kitchen and the precision of nature. As a doctor who has spent 3 decades in the trenches of human suffering and recovery, I feel a moral obligation to tell you what the big brands won't. We are going to discuss the 4 worst vitamins that you should never touch after you reach 60, the ones that can thin your blood until it is dangerous or cloud your mind until you no longer recognize yourself. But we won't stop there, because medicine should always end in hope. I will also share the 4 essential nutrients that your aging body truly craves, the ones that act like a GPS for your health, guiding calcium to your bones and oxygen to your brain. This isn't just about biology, it is about your dignity and your future. It is about making sure that your golden years are actually golden and not tarnished by the very things you thought would make them shine. Let us begin this journey together, with honesty as our only medicine and science as our only guide. I remember the afternoon Eleanor Miller walked into my clinic in Savannah. The Georgia humidity was heavy, but inside the exam room, the air felt even more weighted by a silence she couldn't quite break. Eleanor was 78 years old, a retired school teacher who had spent 4 decades shaping young minds with a gentle firmness. But as she sat on the crinkling paper of the exam table, she looked remarkably fragile, like a piece of heirloom porcelain that had been dropped and glued back together too many times. What struck me first were the bruises. They weren't the small accidental marks of a bump against a table. They were deep, spreading pools of purple and indigo that clouded her forearms and the backs of her hands. She wore long sleeves to hide them, a habit of a woman who valued her dignity above all else. But as her doctor, I saw the truth she was trying to mask. She reached into her bag and pulled out a large amber-colored bottle of vitamin E, labeled with promises of heart health and eternal youth. "I've taken 800 international units every single morning for 20 years, Dr. Gupta," she told me, her voice trembling slightly. The commercials said it would keep my arteries clear. I thought I was protecting myself. It broke my heart to look into those kind, aging eyes and tell her that her act of self-care was actually an act of slow, unintentional self-destruction. I had to explain the cold, hard chemistry that many seniors never hear until it is nearly too late. Clinical studies from Johns Hopkins University and the National Institute on Aging have revealed a terrifying reality. Older adults who consume more than 400 international units of synthetic vitamin E daily face a 20% higher risk of heart failure and hemorrhagic stroke.
The problem lies in the word synthetic. Most over-the-counter supplements use DL-alpha tocopherol, a factory-produced ghost of the real nutrient. In a body that has seen nearly 8 decades of life, this chemical buildup upsets the delicate balance of antioxidants. Instead of acting as a shield, it becomes a spark that ignites oxidative stress, what I often describe to my patients as the silent rusting of your cellular machinery. For Eleanor, this meant her blood was becoming dangerously thin, her vessels so fragile that a simple sneeze or a minor stumble could trigger internal bleeding. She wasn't just taking a vitamin, she was taking a chemical that was making her heart weaker and her life more precarious. I remember the way the light caught the tears in her eyes when she realized her heart vitamin was the very thing making her feel so frail. She felt betrayed by a system that prioritizes profit over the nuanced needs of an aging physiology. I took her hand, carefully, mindful of the bruises, and told her that the solution wasn't found in a laboratory, but in her own kitchen. I told her to throw that bottle away and instead reach for a handful of almonds, a splash of extra virgin olive oil on her salad, or a sprinkle of sunflower seeds. These foods provide the natural mixed tocopherols that the body recognizes and welcomes, providing protection without the catastrophic risk of a stroke.
The transformation in Eleanor over the next few months was nothing short of cinematic. Without the synthetic overload, her body began to heal itself. The purple clouds on her skin vanished, replaced by the healthy, pale glow of a woman whose blood was no longer a liability. She regained the confidence to walk in her garden without the paralyzing fear of a fall. It was a powerful reminder that my job isn't just to prescribe, it is to protect my patients from the more is better myth. Eleanor didn't need a miracle pill. She needed the truth. She needed to understand that at 78, her story wasn't over, but it needed to be written with the wisdom of nature, not the arrogance of synthetic chemistry.
Arthur Artie Vance was a man built like an old oak tree that had weathered 1,000 Atlantic storms. A former dock worker from the gritty piers of Boston, he had spent 82 years relying on his physical strength. But when he shuffled into my office, that strength seemed to have been replaced by a leaden, suffocating fatigue. His eyes, once sharp and clear, had a disturbing yellowish tint, and his skin appeared sallow, almost gray. "I'm losing it, Doc," he whispered, leaning heavily on his cane. "I'm forgetting my late wife's face. I'm tired in my bones. I think the Alzheimer's is finally coming for me." Artie's fear was palpable. He was a man who had survived the harshest winters of Massachusetts, yet he was terrified of the winter settling inside his own mind. He had been taking an iron supplement every day for years, believing the common misconception that more iron equals more energy. But as a geriatric specialist who has seen 30,000 patients, I knew the hidden danger lurking in his blood. After we cross the age of 60, our bodies undergo a fundamental shift. We no longer shed iron as efficiently as we did in our youth. For a man like Artie, that daily pill was causing a slow-motion poisoning known as iron overload or hemochromatosis light. The metal wasn't being used, it was accumulating, settling into his liver, his heart, and most tragically, his brain. It was literally rusting his tissues from the inside out, creating a fog of oxidative stress that mimicked the symptoms of dementia. I ordered a blood panel, and the results confirmed my darkest suspicions. Artie's iron levels were nearly double the safe limit for a man of his age. I sat him down and explained that research from the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Medical School has directly linked high iron levels in seniors to an increased risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease. "Artie," I said, "you aren't losing your mind. You're drowning in metal." The extra iron was feeding the very inflammation that made his joints ache and his memory fade. He wasn't anemic, he was toxic. The energy he was chasing in that bottle was actually the weight that was dragging him into an early grave.
The solution for Artie was a radical departure from his routine. I told him to stop the supplements immediately and avoid any multivitamins labeled with iron. We turned back to the basics: leafy greens, beans, and the occasional serving of lean meat. These natural sources provide iron in a matrix that the body can regulate, preventing the dangerous buildup that occurs with concentrated pills. It was a process of detoxification, a slow peeling back of the rust that had encased his vitality. The change didn't happen overnight, but by the 10th week, Artie walked into the clinic without his cane. The yellow tint in his eyes had cleared, replaced by a spark of the old dock worker I knew was still in there. He told me he had spent the morning looking at old photographs of his wife, and for the first time in years, the details of her smile were sharp and clear. He wasn't a victim of an unstoppable disease. He was a victim of a misplaced habit. Seeing Artie reclaim his memories was a reminder that sometimes the most profound healing comes not from adding something new, but from removing the invisible toxins we've been told are healthy. Henry Whitaker was a man of precision, a retired carpenter from the sun-scorched plains of Phoenix who had spent his life working with his hands. At 69, he should have been enjoying his retirement, perhaps building dollhouses for his granddaughters. Instead, he came to me with a look of quiet desperation that I will never forget. "It feels like I'm walking on hot coals, Dr. Gupta," he told me, his voice tight with pain. "And my hands, they tingle and burn so much I can't even hold a pencil. My doctor back home said it was probably just old age or poor circulation, but it's getting worse every day." Henry felt like a prisoner in his own skin, watching his independence slip away as his balance became increasingly precarious. As we talked, Henry mentioned he was taking a mega-dose nerve support complex he saw advertised on late-night television. It contained 200 milligrams of vitamin B6 per capsule, 100 times the daily recommended intake. He thought he was being proactive, protecting his nerves from the wear and tear of time. I had to deliver the crushing news that the very supplement he bought to heal his nerves was actually murdering them cell by cell. This condition, known as peripheral neuropathy caused by B6 toxicity, is a nightmare that mimics the very diseases people are trying to prevent. When the body is flooded with more B6 than it can process, especially in seniors whose kidneys clear toxins more slowly, the vitamin accumulates in the nerve tissue, causing irreversible damage. I explained to Henry that the National Institutes of Health has issued stern warnings about high-dose B6. While the vitamin is essential for brain function, anything over 100 milligrams a day can be neurotoxic. Henry was taking double that. His pins and needles weren't a sign of aging, they were a silent scream from his nervous system, which was being suffocated by the very nutrient meant to sustain it. The irony was devastating. He was a builder who was accidentally dismantling his own ability to feel the world around him. The first step was an immediate cessation of the supplement. I watched the fear in his eyes as he realized he had been paying to hurt himself, but I also gave him a path back to health. I told him that his body only truly needs about 2 milligrams of B6 a day, an amount easily found in a single banana, a bowl of oats, or a piece of wild-caught fish. We focused on a diet of real food to allow his scorched nerves a chance to settle. It was a journey of patience and pain management as we waited to see how much of the damage was permanent. 6 months later, Henry returned. He wasn't perfectly healed. Nerve damage is a stubborn foe, but the burning had subsided to a dull hum, and he could once again grip his carpenter's square. He had regained enough balance to play in the yard with his grandkids. The look of hopelessness had been replaced by a cautious, hard-won optimism. Henry's story is a sobering testament to the fact that in the delicate ecosystem of the aging body, megadoses are rarely the answer. Often, the most profound nerve support is simply stepping out of the way and letting nature's own balance restore what was lost. There is a ritual performed in millions of American households every morning, the swallowing of a complete senior multivitamin. I see the bottles everywhere, brightly colored, promising a silver standard of health for those over 50. But as I stand in my clinic reviewing the blood work of patients who faithfully take these pills, I often see a different story. These tablets are frequently less about nutrition and more about industrial chemistry. They are packed with synthetic compounds, artificial dyes like red 40 or blue 2, and binders like titanium dioxide and hydrogenated oils, substances your liver was never designed to process, let alone in your 70s or 80s. I remember a patient named Robert, a 74-year-old retired engineer who prided himself on his logic and health. He came to me feeling inexplicably weak and lightheaded. His blood tests showed dangerously elevated liver enzymes and vitamin A levels that were approaching toxic thresholds.
"I don't even eat junk food, doctor," he protested. "How can my liver be struggling?" I pointed to the shiny bottle of Senior Silver multivitamins on my desk that he had brought in. He wasn't overdosing on bad habits, he was overdosing on his health routine. The synthetic vitamin A and isolated niacin in that pill had slowly accumulated in his system, turning a daily habit into a toxic burden that his aging organs couldn't clear.
The human body is an incredibly sophisticated biological machine, but it doesn't always know what to do with lab-created isolates. When you eat an orange, you get vitamin C along with hundreds of cofactors, enzymes, and fibers that help your body use it. When you swallow a synthetic pill, you are giving your body a chemical fragment. Research suggests that these isolated chemicals can bypass the body's natural regulatory systems, leading to oxidative stress, the cellular equivalent of dumping sand into a high-performance engine. This stress is a primary driver of inflammation, cancer, and heart disease. For Robert, his multivitamin wasn't a safety net. It was a formula for fatigue and internal stress.
I told Robert that he deserved nourishment, not lab waste. We stripped his routine down to the essentials and moved him toward a food-based supplement program. Vitamins derived from actual fermented greens and fruits, free of synthetic fillers and dyes. We focused on whole body health, emphasizing that a pill can never replace the complex symphony of nutrients found in a Mediterranean-style diet. The change in his lab results was swift. Within 8 weeks, his liver enzymes returned to normal, and the heaviness he felt in his limbs evaporated. Robert's experience is a wake-up call for anyone over 60. We have been sold a bill of goods by an industry that profits from our fear of aging. True vitality doesn't come in a complete bottle filled with industrial byproducts. It comes from understanding that your body is a living thing that craves living nutrients. If your multivitamin contains ingredients you can't pronounce or dyes that belong in a paint factory, you aren't helping your body. You're asking it to work overtime to clean up a mess. It's time to demand more for ourselves. It's time to choose purity over convenience, because your health is worth more than a cheap synthetic promise. One of the most heartbreaking things I see in my 30 years of practice is a patient who does everything right and still suffers a catastrophe. I think of Eleanor, not the one from Savannah, but Eleanor from Illinois, a 78-year-old retired librarian. She was terrified of breaking a hip, so she took 2,000 international units of vitamin D every single day, just as she'd been told. She spent time in her garden, she ate her dairy, and she was diligent. Yet, during a routine cardiovascular scan, we found something chilling. Her coronary arteries were beginning to calcify. They were hardening, turning into stone-like tubes. "How can this be?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I take my vitamin D for my bones. Why is my heart failing?" I had to explain to her the missing link that the mainstream supplement industry often forgets to mention. Vitamin D is a powerful commander. It tells your body to absorb calcium with incredible efficiency. But vitamin D is a commander without a map. Once that calcium is in your bloodstream, it doesn't instinctively know where to go. Without its essential partner, vitamin K2, that calcium often ends up in the worst possible places: your heart valves, your kidneys, and your arteries, instead of your bones. I often tell my patients that vitamin D is the worker who brings the bricks to the construction site, but vitamin K2 is the foreman who tells them exactly where to lay them. Without the foreman, the bricks just pile up in the driveway, blocking the path. This isn't just a theory. It is a biological necessity confirmed by the Journal of Nutrition and Aging. Studies show that seniors with high levels of vitamin D but low levels of K2 actually have a higher risk of arterial stiffness. Eleanor was inadvertently stoning her own heart while her bones remained hungry for the very calcium that was clogging her vessels. I immediately adjusted her regimen, introducing 100 micrograms of the MK7 form of vitamin K2. I told her, "Eleanor, we're giving your calcium a GPS." The results were a testament to the power of biological synergy. Over the next year, her arterial calcification stabilized, and for the first time in a decade, her bone density scans showed actual improvement. She felt stronger, her gait was more stable, and the tightness she often felt in her chest began to ease. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was protecting herself from the inside out. The lesson here is vital for anyone over 60. Our skin no longer converts sunlight into vitamin D effectively. Nearly 70% of American seniors are deficient, but supplementing blindly is a risk we cannot afford. You must pair your D3 with K2. This partnership is a shield for your heart and a foundation for your skeleton. It is the difference between a life of fragility and a life of strength. When you give your body the right instructions, it knows exactly how to heal. Eleanor's journey from hardened arteries to strong bones is a story of hope, proving that with the right scientific balance, we can age not with fear, but with vitality.
There is a quiet thief moving through the homes of older Americans, stealing their memories, their energy, and their very sense of self. This thief doesn't make headlines, but it affects nearly 4 in 10 seniors. It is vitamin B12 deficiency. I remember Frank, a 74-year-old retired firefighter from Denver. Frank was a man who had faced literal infernos, but he was losing the battle against a fog in his own mind. He came to my office convinced he had early onset dementia. He was forgetting the names of his fellow firefighters, missing his grandson's ball games, and once he even got lost driving to the grocery store he'd visited for 30 years. "I'm disappearing, Dr. Gupta," he told me, his eyes filled with a hollow, haunting fear.
But as I looked at Frank, I didn't see dementia. I saw a body that was starving. As we age, our stomachs produce significantly less hydrochloric acid, the very substance required to unlock B12 from the food we eat. Frank could eat a steak every night and still be profoundly deficient because the key to his nutrition was broken. Vitamin B12 is the spark plug of the nervous system. It creates the red blood cells that carry oxygen and builds the myelin sheath that protects your nerves. Without it, your brain literally begins to shrink, and your thoughts become sluggish and heavy.
I ordered a blood test for his B12 levels, and the results were catastrophically low. I told him, "Frank, you don't have a broken brain, you have an empty tank." We started him on methylcobalamin, the active, pre-digested form of B12 that bypasses the stomach struggles and goes straight into the bloodstream. Within 6 weeks, the transformation was nothing short of a miracle. The fog lifted. Frank started remembering names again, his balance improved, and the light returned to his eyes. He wasn't a dementia patient anymore. He was a firefighter again, sharp and present.
Science backs up Frank's recovery. Research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has shown that restoring B12 can slow brain shrinkage and dramatically improve mood and focus in older adults. But the form matters immensely. Most store-bought vitamins use cyanocobalamin, a cheap version that the body struggles to convert. You need the methyl form. It is the direct fuel your nerves are crying out for. If you feel tired, irritable, or fuzzy in your thinking, don't just accept it as a part of getting old. Your body might be calling for help in the only way it knows how. Frank's story is a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying symptoms have the simplest solutions. We just have to be willing to look past the label of old age and see the biological truth underneath. Frank didn't need a nursing home. He just needed the right spark to get his engine running again. Dorothy Dot Higgins was a woman who lived in a state of perpetual motion, a former librarian from Portland who seemed to have forgotten how to be still. But when she sat in my clinic, her hands were trembling and her eyes were underlined with the deep, dark circles of a woman who hadn't slept in a lifetime. "My heart jumps in my chest, Dr. Gupta," she told me, clutching a tissue, "and at night my legs just won't stay still. I feel like I'm plugged into an electrical outlet that I can't turn off." Dorothy had lost her husband 5 years prior, and she attributed her anxiety and insomnia to grief. But 5 years is a long time for the body to remain in a state of high alert. I suspected a different culprit, a profound deficiency in magnesium, the mineral I call the calm conductor of the human body. Magnesium regulates over 300 vital functions, from heart rhythm to sleep cycles. Yet, 70% of seniors are running on empty. Why? Because as we age, our kidneys excrete more of it, and the very medications seniors take for blood pressure or acid reflux act like sponges, soaking up every last drop of magnesium in the system. Dorothy was living in a state of biological short circuit. Her heart was racing because it lacked the mineral to steady its beat. Her mind was spinning because it lacked the nutrient to quiet the noise. I checked her levels, and, as expected, they were critically low. I didn't reach for a sedative or a heart medication. Instead, I reached for magnesium glycinate, the gentle, highly absorbable form that soothes the nervous system without the harsh side effects of cheaper versions. I told her, "Dot, your body has forgotten how to exhale. We're going to help it remember." The change was profound. A month later, Dorothy returned, and for the first time, she was sitting perfectly still. "I slept, doctor," she said, and the way she said it brought tears to my eyes. "I slept for 7 hours straight. I feel like I've come home to myself." By restoring her magnesium, we had tuned the instrument of her body. Her heart palpitations vanished, her restless legs went quiet, and the anxious fog that had defined her widowhood finally began to lift. Studies from the National Institutes of Health confirm that magnesium is the ultimate anti-stress mineral for the aging population. It is the nutrient of renewal. When you restore your magnesium, you aren't just taking a mineral. You are giving your heart a steady rhythm and your mind a chance to rest. Dorothy's first quiet night was a victory of biology over despair. It proved that so much of what we call aging or anxiety is actually just a body out of balance, waiting for the right conductor to lead the symphony once again. Robert Bobby Malone was a man of few words. A Vietnam veteran from Seattle whose body bore the invisible scars of a lifetime of service. But at 73, the battle he was fighting was internal. His joints were so stiff he could barely climb the stairs, and a dark, heavy cloud of depression had settled over him. "I feel like the lights are going out, Doc," he told me, staring at his boots. "I can't think straight. I can't move without pain, and I just don't feel like myself anymore." Bobby's wife sat beside him, her face etched with worry, telling me he had lost his spark, the quick wit and the easy laugh that had defined him for 50 years. I looked at Bobby and I didn't see an old man. I saw a body starving for the right fats. Science has proven that among all the nutrients studied in the last 50 years, none are more vital for aging gracefully than omega-3 fatty acids. They are the structural food for your brain and the oil for your joints. But as we age, our bodies become less efficient at producing these essential fats. Bobby was running on empty, and his brain and heart were paying the price in inflammation and decline. I started Bobby on a high-quality, purity-tested fish oil supplement, 1,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA daily. I told him, "Bobby, we're going to put some fuel back in the engine." Omega-3s work by reducing the silent inflammation that causes joints to ache and brain cells to misfire. They keep your arteries flexible and your mood stable. A landmark Harvard study found that seniors with higher omega-3 levels have a 27% lower risk of dying from heart disease and significantly better cognitive performance. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. After 3 months, Bobby walked into the clinic with a different energy. His gait was smoother, and more importantly, he was smiling. "The lights came back on, Dr. Gupta," his wife whispered to me, her eyes shimmering. Bobby told me his concentration had sharpened, and he'd started working on his old truck again, something he hadn't had the energy for in years. The gray world he had been living in was suddenly full of color again. The key for Bobby, and for every senior, is purity. You must choose an omega-3 source that is wild-caught and tested for heavy metals and oxidation. When your heart beats stronger and your mind feels clearer, life itself feels lighter. Bobby's journey is a reminder that age doesn't have to be a slow fading of the light. With the right medicine for the mind, we can keep the flame of our vitality burning bright until the very last chapter. Omega-3 isn't just a supplement. It's a testament to the fact that our bodies are designed to thrive, not just survive, if we give them what they truly need. As I sit here in my office, the stars now beginning to twinkle over the Georgia sky, I think of Eleanor, Artie, Henry, Dot, and Bobby. Their stories are not just medical case files. They are the heart and soul of my 30 years in medicine. They are reminders that the choices we make every single morning, the pills we take, the food we eat, the way we treat our aging bodies are the most powerful prescriptions we will ever write. We have been taught to fear aging, to see it as the inevitable slide into frailty and fog. But as I have seen in over 30,000 patients, that doesn't have to be your story. You have the power to choose wisdom over marketing. You have the power to understand that your body at 70 is a different, more delicate masterpiece than it was at 20. It doesn't need megadoses or synthetic lab waste. It needs the targeted natural support of D3 and K2 to guide your calcium. It needs the spark plug of methylcobalamin B12. It needs the calm conductor of magnesium, and it needs the brain food of pure omega-3s. These are the tools that allow you to age with grace, dignity, and independence. So, I have a challenge for you tonight. I want you to walk to your medicine cabinet and look at those bottles with a new set of eyes. Ask yourself, are these pills adding years to my life, or are they adding life to my years? If you see DL-alpha tocopherol, iron without a doctor's order, cyanocobalamin, or a list of dyes and fillers you can't pronounce, have the courage to let them go. Your body deserves the truth. It deserves nutrients that come from nature and are backed by rigorous science.
The best chapters of your life are not behind you. They are waiting for you to reclaim your clarity, your strength, and your joy. Do not let old age be an excuse for decline. Instead, let it be a season of refinement and vitality. I want to see you walking in your gardens, playing with your grandchildren, and contributing your wisdom to a world that desperately needs it. But you must act now. Your health is a living thing that requires your attention today, not tomorrow.
If this journey we've taken together tonight has touched your heart or opened your eyes, I invite you to join our community. Please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications. We are building a movement of seniors who refuse to go quietly into the night, a movement of people who choose science, nature, and life. Share this story with someone you love who might be struggling in the fog of the wrong supplements. Let's support each other as we write these magnificent final chapters. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your health. Here is to a life lived on your own terms, with a heart that beats strong and a mind that stays bright. God bless.